Shields up, Ironbreakers, and welcome back to Monster Hunter Wilds. Yesterday we received a brand new trailer for the game during the Summer Game Fest, and today I'm going to be breaking down that trailer to the best of my ability. However, before I do, I would just like to give you guys a couple of confirmations that were received during the show as well. So one of those confirmations was we are going to be getting a simultaneous release for Monster Hunter Wilds, which means it is going to be releasing on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, as well as Xbox Series S and PC over on Steam, which is really good because it was one of the things that we've been saying it was probably going to be the case, but there hadn't really been any official confirmation. That all ended last night when Ryozu took to the stage. Now, another thing that I also consider to be very important is we are going to be getting crossplay for Monster Hunter Wilds, which means if you're playing on PC, if you're playing on PlayStation, or if you're playing on Xbox, it doesn't matter. Everybody can play together. However, we are not going to be getting cross-save or cross-progression, which was another one of the features that I really wanted, but doesn't look like that one is in the cards. So we have here on the official website where they say crossplay is supported. Players will be able to match with other players across all available platforms. This means, from my interpretation at least, that you're going to be able to straight up answer SOS flares, assuming that that is going to be a feature because it is shown on the previous trailers. Crossplay can be enabled or disabled in the in-game options, so if you for some reason do not want to engage in crossplay, you can limit the pool of players that you have access to and just play with people on your platform if that's something that you want to do, as well as players can also become friends with other players across different platforms. Now, this one is a little bit weird, which implies that the game is going to have its own friend list thing going on, and for that you would assume, okay, so that means they're going to be using Capcom ID, but that is likely not going to be the case because Capcom specifically says a Capcom ID is not needed to play the game or access the online exclusive content. Or maybe the way that this is going to work out is maybe you need the Capcom ID if you want to have this friends list thing, and you can just matchmake with other people without necessarily creating a friends list or anything like that if that happens to be the case. But, you know, crossplay is confirmed, which is really cool. However, cross-save, not so much, because they say here cross-save not supported. Save data, game progress, paid DLC, etc. will be managed separately by each platform. For this reason, it will not be possible to share save data across different platforms. So basically, the reasoning here is imagine, for instance, you are playing on the Xbox platform and you buy like some cosmetic DLC or something like that, and then you go and you play on the PlayStation, and suddenly PlayStation is expected to honor the fact that you bought that DLC from Xbox because, let's say you buy like a cosmetic armor piece or something, and then you go to PlayStation and, you know, the save file is going to be a complete hassle to figure out, oh, does he actually own this on this platform as well? And that appears to be the main reason why this is working like this. Maybe there's a more elegant way to solve the situation, but for now, that is going to be what we are going to get. Naturally, with the console platforms, you are going to need the online membership. So if you are playing on PlayStation, you're going to need to have PlayStation Plus in order to play online. Again, this is just for online play. You can still play completely solo without having a PlayStation Plus subscription or an Xbox Game Pass Core, whatever they call their thing now. It used to be Xbox Live. You're not going to be needing one of those to play solo, but if you want to engage in multiplayer, you are going to be needing that. Now, they also mentioned, please be aware the game's still in development. This information is subject to change, but I don't think so. I think this is where we're going to be getting crossplay, no cross-save, but hey, just having crossplay there, really good in my opinion, so it is what it is. Now, before we jump into the trailer itself, I would like to bring up the previous trailer because fundamentally the new trailer kind of kicks off immediately after a particular scene in the other one. So if we look at the intro here, this is the intro from the previous trailer.
As soon as we find a good spot, we can get things set up and ready to go. And then we can get started.
This is gonna be great!
You bet.
I hope we find them soon.
Look! Now, that is where there's a cut and they start showing gameplay and all of this stuff in the previous trailer. But that cut is pretty much where this trailer begins, which is why I wanted to show you guys the beginning of the other trailer. And if you guys notice, this is exactly when we start on this one. So what was Nada looking at? these little friendly dudes, which we're going to be talking about in just a couple of seconds here.
Over there!
There they are. So this is a new monster, and I say new monster because this monster had already been shown in the previous trailer as well. I believe it was at minute 116, give or take. If you guys noticed this scene, which by the way, this trailer's a little bit loud, sorry about that. If you notice this scene here, you can see that the Doshagumas are getting like swallowed up by sand, and you see that there's like a monster around here. They really don't draw too much attention to it, but you can see that monster a little bit later. You can see him here a little bit more clearly, right? And then you can see that monster a little bit later here. It is going to be coiling around the neck of the Doshaguma, right? You can see him right there. And then he's going to throw him to the ground. Boom. And there's the body of the monster, and that monster is the same monster that we have right here, except here we have a little bit of a close-up shot of him, and this is a really interesting shot of this monster too, because it shows you like its clam-like mouth. Basically, the whole idea is that this monster is built in a way where he can contort his body to work like a drill, and he just kind of like goes through the sand like a drilling creature. And he's also able to do sand quicksand traps to ensnare the enemies like we saw in the previous trailer with the Doshagumas and all of that stuff. But a really interesting thing that has been pointed out by the community, which I also noticed yesterday when we were looking over at this footage a little bit more closely, I was like, are these eyes? Because they're probably not, because you see like here and here and here and here, and then all over here and whatnot. And I was thinking that these weren't going to be eyes, so I just assumed this was some type of sensory organ that allowed them to kind of like feel stuff, like maybe feel vibrations under the earth or something like that. I just assumed that this was some type of sensory organ. But the community has naturally gotten together and, you know, they started looking at crazy things online. I'm not exactly sure how you go about doing why you would know this information. But if you guys look, this right here is a scallop. And I was not aware that scallop had this many eyes. Yes, these are actually eyes. These are the eyes of a scallop. And if you look at this, and then you look back to the trailer, you can see that they have a very similar thing going on as the scallop, which is interesting, just how many different directions Capcom tends to go with their monster designs and all of that stuff. But let's learn a little bit more about this new monster. His name is Balahara. He is a desert-dwelling leviathan that uses their supple serpentine bodies to create quicksand traps for unwary prey. We've also seen that they're able to like coil around monsters and work almost like, you know, the same way that snakes do. They coil around and they just like choke you out, as we see them trying to do that to their Shagumas. And interestingly enough, there seems to be a theme around a lot of the monsters. I don't know what they're doing with the engine of the game, but you look at the monsters from a distance, right? And they look reasonably small, or medium-sized or something like that. But when you get close enough to them, the sense of scale is just absolutely insane. And you're like, oh, wait, actually, this is a really big monster. Or maybe there's just really varying sizes that they've been showing throughout these trailers. But I feel like every time I get a good look at one of these monsters, the size always ends up surprising me, which is very, very interesting. There's definitely something going on with the engine there, maybe. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that. Is that something that you've noticed in the recent Monster Hunter trailers, that like you look at the monster and you're, that's not too big, and then when the hunter gets close enough, you're like, wait, actually that's friggin' massive. That's a huge friggin' monster. I don't know what the hell's going on there. But anyway, we have a little bit more information. As you can see, this is what's said on the website. This Leviathan uses its serpentine body to slither through the normally impassable jagged landscape with ease. The Balahara secretes a slick substance that allows it to greet any creature unfortunate enough to wander into its territory with a salvo slung from afar. So basically, they can spit. Think of them almost like llamas. I don't know if you guys know, but llamas can actually spit really, really far. So they got all of this scallop stuff, and then they can spit really far. Wait, isn't there like some type of seafood that is also able to spit really far? I remember that. When I was younger, I'd be walking around all these places in Portugal with seafood, and there would be like these clam things that would just spit out really, really far. So actually, it might be inspiration from that. I don't know. But it's really, really cool in my opinion. We have a couple of more things that I want to look over here in a second, but I want to get back to the trailer. I just wanted to show you guys this shot of the monster, and I want to go back a little bit because there's obviously more things to talk about. So let's continue. The Balahabra herd. It is a herd. Like we've mentioned, a lot of the things that are going to be happening in this Monster Hunter are going to revolve around the concept of herds, probably us having to separate certain monsters. In the case of this trailer, one of the things that happens is the separation occurs naturally. But I really like what they're trying to do with this presentation, which is presenting the seamlessness of the story as well as going from a cutscene into gameplay. Now, this is something that they did do in the previous Monster Hunter World and Iceborne. There was somewhat of a seamless transition between cutscenes and gameplay, but it is also important to mention that this particular feature is going to be somewhat divisive within the community because a lot of people just want to hunt together with other players. They don't necessarily care about the story, which is understandable because fundamentally this is a co-op game. Even though, you know, personally, I like having both aspects of it. And I think that one of the things that the team needs to consider is making these cutscenes skippable. Now, me, I'm never going to be skipping any cutscenes. You guys know me. I'm going to be watching them probably multiple times because I just really appreciate the animation work that Capcom puts into this stuff, which is, you know, top notch in the industry as far as I'm concerned. But I know that there's a lot of players that are impatient. They just want to get on with the hunt. They just want to get in there with 3 other friends and hunt the monsters and have a good time. So that's going to be something that I'm hoping that Capcom takes into consideration as well to serve that side of the community. They actually point out here that one of the things that they wanted to work on was they want to work on crafting a story unlike anything seen before in a Monster Hunter series, blending a compelling and intriguing narrative with interesting characters to meet during your journey. So in here, they also talk about the seamless, where was it? There was like a mention somewhere in here about the seamless transition from gameplay from cutscene into gameplay, which is kind of like something that they're focusing a lot on in this particular trailer. And this trailer is much more focused on the story side of things than necessarily gameplay. In a way, I almost wish that this was the first trailer and the one that we got in the PlayStation State of Play would have been the second trailer, because this one is still much more cinematic, much more talking about the story and whatnot, and then the State of Play shows off more gameplay mechanics. I expected this trailer to expand upon the gameplay mechanics that were shown in the previous one, and I think that's what a lot of people were expecting. Like, for instance, Gaijin Hunter, I know he was a little bit, you know, bummed out with some of the stuff that he saw in this trailer, but I think that was one of the expectations that a lot of people in the community had was, oh, we're going to see, you know, the focus mode explained better and stuff like that, but it wasn't really the case, because the focus here is like, hey, seamless transitions, cutscene to gameplay, look at the story. The team is definitely focusing a lot more this time around on presenting a story that people will want to enjoy rather than just the hunting experience. I'm curious to see where that leads, because I've always wanted Monster Hunter to, you know, present more interesting things with its story. We shall see if that's going to be the case this time around or not. That's not to say that I don't like the story of Monster Hunter, but fundamentally, I've always looked at it more as it's an adventure. And 4 Ultimate is the epitome of that. It is fantastic because it is an adventure where you're going from village to village and just having yourself a grand old time. But anyway, let's jump back into the trailer. I've rambled on enough. So, this time around in the trailer, we're going to be getting the female hunter, as opposed to the male one, which is presented in the first trailer. And female hunter, the default one, she looks nice. That's all I'm going to say. We see the Palico here with the voice acting once again.
Over there!
Over there. That was the Palico. Feel free to let me know in the comment section whether or not you like that, even though I know that's not a lot to go off of. But, you know, the Palico speaks. We've talked about this before. Personally, I like it. I know that a lot of people are going to be divisive on it, but I just hope that Capcom takes that into consideration and lets it be a setting. So this time around, we run in here and we see this dude who appears to be fending off all of these Balaharas, the new monster that we were just talking about. And we are not really given any additional context to this scene, which I think is a good thing. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, but I want to know more. I want to know more about that character. It's like, no, I don't want to know anything. I want to know stuff, specific stuff, when I jump into the game. That's when I want to know those things. But until then, I want to know the least amount possible and just show me cool stuff. Look at the amount of them. Just like a beefy horde of Balaharas. Now, another thing that people were talking about during the live stream was like, oh, is that the new weapon? And it's like, no, I don't think this stick is going to be a new weapon. I mean, I could be completely wrong. Maybe they're introducing a new weapon. It's going to be a spear of some kind, but I don't think that's the case. I think this is just a side character that doesn't really do combat with monsters. I suspect he's probably like some type of a village chief or the son of a village chief because he's very young. And he's just out here making sure that these Balahabras don't end up close to the village or something like that. And our hunter comes in to, you know, help him out. But you can see here, he wasn't expecting the hunter to show up. And the hunter shows up. She's like, you can't do this alone. So this definitely seems like he's trying to divert this herd of Balahabras to... Balaharas? I forget. I already forgot. But he's trying to divert this herd of Balaharas away from something. And our hunter is going like, okay, you can't do this alone. I'm coming here to help you because I can actually beat these guys. And you're just like some dude that lives in a village. You're not really a hunter.
Can't do this alone.
Now, we have the slinger here. As you can see, the slinger is much more compact than the slinger that we get in Monster Hunter World. Now, I do believe that this is going to change depending on your armor, but I don't think we're going to see it be as bulky as it was in Monster Hunter World. Now, this right here reminds me a little bit of Scattershot or something like that. You know, that little thing that you would, what was it called in World? I forget them. The one that basically worked like a shotgun blast and stunned monsters and whatnot. Or maybe it was the Crystal Burst because it's got these crystalline things. So it may be something kind of like Crystal Burst. She fires this at one of the Balaharas. Boom. And you can see the detonation, which is usually what you'd see with the scatter shot type of slinger ammo. And monsters would get KO'd by this, or they would flinch. And considering that it's midway through the air, flinching would cause it to fall down. So that's probably what that type of ammunition was. And I believe that we are going to be able to shoot this while we're riding Sacred, because they've already said that you can use your slinger shot. So even though this is cutscene, this is something that you can actually do in the game.
We need to shake them off. Follow me. Yeah.
So he's taken the lead. The fact that he is taking the lead here tells me that this dude is a character that has lived in the Forbidden Lands, so he's trying to guide us through the Forbidden Lands, whereas we are an expedition coming in. So he's a local, let's put it like that. That would be my interpretation of the situation. Now, I saw this little yellow glowy thing here, but I can't really make out what it is. I don't know if this is something that you can maybe shoot at and maybe this thing falls over, or if this is like a resource that you can pick up. I'm not exactly sure. Now, another really cool thing is that we have the Palico here, and he rides on the tail of the Sacred, which I expected this to be mostly a feathery tail, but it's actually like a physical tail, like a lizard tail that just happens to have feathers, I would assume, if it can sustain the weight of the Palico.
There's too many of them.
Palico speaking again, there's too many of them.
Watch out for that glop.
The glop, which is the secretion that he shoots at people from range. Now here, extremely important.
I will draw a tire.
Boom. We hit the monster with the sword as we are moving.
I will draw a tire.
Now, I can tell that a lot of people are going to look at this and say, mounted combat, 100%, here we go. I would just like to remind you that in Monster Hunter Rise, you are able to attack with your Palamute by doing like 3 basic slash attacks with a weapon that he has in his mouth. And I understand that you see something like this using your actual weapon to strike the monster, but my prediction would be that this is actually going to be somewhat limited. And they talk about it here in the blog post where they say hunters can brandish their weapons while mounted atop their Sacred to deter an approaching pack of predators, or the Sacred can be directed to avoid monsters automatically. So this is kind of like a hard sentence to break down in terms of what type of gameplay you can expect from this, because it almost seems like you can attack, or if you're not attacking, your Sacred will automatically avoid monster attacks. Or maybe it's just avoid monsters. But I believe that Gaijin actually looked at the Japanese version last night, and he was telling me that they say something like dodging. And you do see the dodging of Sacred in this trailer. So my concern is I don't like the fact that it's automatic. I don't like the monster doing auto dodges. I feel like stuff like dodging should always be a player button input of some kind. Because otherwise, how are the monsters going to be able to punish you if you make a mistake? Because, you know, players need to get punished when they make mistakes. That's what makes video games interesting. You play right, you don't get punished. You play wrong, you do get punished. So I don't know. I'm very divided in this whole thing about auto dodging for your mount. I wish it was manual because that's more interesting. But basically the way in which they describe, you know, brandishing your weapons to deter an approaching pack of predators, it just makes me feel like, you know, you can do a couple of swings. You're not really going to be like triple charging your great sword and then, you know, running in, blasting somebody in the face from your sacred. I don't think that's what Capcom is doing. But I do think that they might end up balancing the game around you being able to mount at a moment's notice to close the gap between you and the monster. You can already do that in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, but I didn't really play too much with Palamute, so I don't know how seamless that whole thing is of like, oh, let me mount during combat. I feel like mostly people mount to get to the place of combat and then they just get off the mount and then they just engage in combat. Maybe this one will have better features that will make mounting during combat a little bit more desirable. One of the things that comes to mind is Elden Ring. If you've watched my recent Elden Ring streams, you'll notice that I've actually been doing a lot of mounted combat because it's fairly easy to jump onto the horse midway through combat wherever that is allowed. And even back in my very first playthrough where I was mostly fighting outside of the horse, when I was fighting dragons, I just call up the horse to close the gap between me and the dragon or to position myself in a safer spot than where I was. But, you know, I think that's something that we're going to be seeing.
Cover me!
You got it. Be careful.
Be ready!
Now here we see the bowgun again firing at the enemies.
Make it to the rocks, we may lose them.
And the hunter eventually gets caught in the sand trap. Now, in here, the sand trap happens during a cinematic, so this is all like cinematic, cutscene, and then it's going to transition into gameplay seamlessly, doing all of that. But we actually see the Balaharas using this in a non-cinematic setting, which I'll call out when it happens.
As I feared, it picked up our scent.
I'll handle it.
So another really cool thing that I've noticed here is you can see that our hunter is caked in sand. And in the very first trailer that they showed, not the last one at the State of Play, but the one before that during the Game Awards, one of the things was that it almost seemed like we didn't have as much detail in our character because it was constantly caked in sand. And I like the fact that they zoomed into our character while it's caked in sand from the quicksand trap. And you can actually see a lot of detail in the model. So I think that's a good thing. And it might even be intentional from them to do this, to kind of show you, hey, you guys were saying the graphics didn't look good. Look at our model now with all of this caked up sand and stuff.
You find someplace safe.
Thank you.
So again, you find someplace safe. This is another thing that tells you this guy's not a hunter. He's just like, okay, he's a civilian. Get out of here. I will deal with this now. Now, this pillar where he's hanging off from, for starters, I think it's really cool that it just hangs up upside down and then like fires goop at you, which he's about to do. I think that this pillar might be one of those lightning rods that we see throughout the map, except that this one's been bent out of shape for some reason. It just became like all crooked and stuff because you can see the core of the rod here. It was just broken off for reasons because this is a harsh environment. Who knows what the hell was happening, right? See, this is him using that combat move. This'll probably be almost like his ultimate move of this monster, I would imagine. So long as you're fighting in a place where a sand trap can happen, this might happen. And just look at the depth that we have here. Like, these maps are going to be absolutely insane if monsters are able to pull off stuff like this. But I think it will only happen in a situation where below the map there will be like a hollow section for you to fight. Think of it like with Diablos in Monster Hunter World, where Diablos has a trap that does exactly this, except implemented on a much greater scale, which is maybe not something that can only happen in a very specific spot. Like maybe it can happen in different locations, depending on whether or not there's like an underground to that area of the map. But I think it looks really cool. You can see us doing a Superman dive there. And that is the auto dodge that they were mentioning earlier. So supposedly, this right here is going to be automatic. Like you see, it is approaching, the monster fires, and your sacred automatically dodges that move. So you don't even have to do anything. You can just be aiming your weapon, doing your whatever you want to, and the sacred himself takes care of business. By the way, the visuals on this look absolutely phenomenal. Like, look at that, blasting him right in the face. That looks great. Now we see some more of that action here. You see a herd of these Balaharas attacking a Doshaguma. And here is when things get really interesting. So here we're going to be given a glimpse into one of the monsters that they are not really talking about yet. And, you know, last night I was thinking, oh, this is going to be the flagship because you get a little bit too excited and whatnot. I'm actually not sure if this was going to be the flagship. Not only that, I'm not even sure that he is an Elder Dragon. He might be, he might not be, but I'm not 100% sure. But it's really cool that you see the lightning here and whatnot. And this is what people have been calling Thor Magala. Now, some people in the channel, for some reason, seem to be believing that I'm stealing this and like I'm claiming that I came up with it. And it's like, no. Last night, there were around 3,000, 4,000 people watching the trailer at this point. And somewhere in the middle of my chat, it showed up like 3 or 4 times, Thor Magala, Thor Magala. I'm not exactly sure who started that, but I thought it's a really cool name. Thor, the god of thunder, and Magala. Now, Magala is a very important reference here because if you look at the features of this monster, he definitely has Magala-like features. Like you see his neck thing here, and he's got this this little thing that pops up. Let me actually go through this a little bit slower. Like you can see this thing popping up, some type of membrane or whatever that he puts out to be able to utilize the power of lightning. And I have a couple of theories in regards to that, but I actually pulled up a video that I recorded earlier today of our boy Gore Magala, his introduction during Monster Hunter Rise. And you can see him coming in right here. And if you pay attention, particularly to the features around his neck, like you see this section of the neck where it almost seems like it's got an opening right around here, right? And then you look at the other video, you see that somewhat similar opening, and this thing comes out of it. And if we keep watching the Gore Magala on this video, he's eventually going to transition into his Enrage during the psychology video. I don't know why this doesn't have audio. Here we go. And you can see once again that little opening thing that I've been talking about, but you see him transition into his Enrage, and look at the shape of his horns, right? You look at the shape of his horns, and then if we go back here, I feel like the horns have somewhat of a similar shape, but he just shows up in maybe even more like Alatreon. I don't know, but just the features remind me so much more of Gore Magala, to the point where I would consider that this could maybe even be a subspecies of Gore Magala, but he looks really, really cool. Now, an interesting thing that people also brought up during my live stream was that, is he actually generating this lightning? Right? Is the monster actually generating the lightning? Is he the genesis of this brutal attack that he's about to perform? Which is brutal. Just absolutely shreds that Gusha... What are their name? I forget the name. Goshaguma, whatever. There's a pronunciation thing that they do in the trailer here, but, you know, the theory was, is he generating it or is he simply channeling it? Because this place is constantly getting struck by lightning, and maybe this monster just evolved in a way where it can actually channel that lightning and utilize it. Which, to be honest, is actually an even more interesting thing. Because, like, if you think about, for instance, Zinogre, a lot of his lightning power also comes from the Fulgur bugs that he has on his back and all of that stuff. I like the idea of monsters symbiotically utilizing the things in their environment to become more deadly rather than just being the source of the power, which is interesting. Not to mention, he could also be considered somewhat the scapegoat, because you could totally see the guild looking, lightning monster, lightning hazards in the area. That's probably him. So he might also be the scapegoat. And then, you know, another Elder Dragon gets revealed later on. But yeah. Another thing that a lot of people brought up was that this is the Railgun Dragon. And I don't know if I also said that or not. Look, it was late last night, but railguns don't work like that, okay? This is more like a lightning discharge, whatever you want to call it. Railguns is an electromagnetic thing that fires projectiles at high speed. It doesn't shoot lightning. So it's not the Railgun Dragon, but feel free to call it that because it is pretty cool. But another thing that we see here is after he discharges this, you can see that his little horns, they open up. See how they opened up there? His little horns open up, so he actually gets more like this. He goes like this to fire, and then after it opens up, which is an interesting little detail. I wonder what he actually looks like when he's not in his firing position, which you can kind of get a glimpse of here, but he becomes almost insectoid. Another really cool feature that I like from this dragon is his wings almost resemble scythes, which look really cool. He's got this glowy tail that obviously we're all going to chop off because that's going to be so brutally satisfying to chop off his tail. Because that's just the way that it is, right? When it comes to Monster Hunter gamers, we see a monster with a cool looking tail and we're like, I need to chop that off. I need to chop that clean off. That's what I got to do. But yeah, you can look at it. It's pretty big tail. Looks really cool. I love the fact that his horns open up. Gives him like almost a completely different profile, so to speak. A really cool monster. Now, here's another very interesting thing that takes place in this trailer, which is the Doshaguma. They're in the village. So these Doshagumas actually make it through and invade a village, which is pretty cool. This is one of the things that I've always wanted to see. As a matter of fact, what was the name of that game? The EA game? You guys know the one I'm talking about. The Monster Hunter type game that EA made. They had a boss fight that was like this, where a monster just goes into the village and you fight him inside the village. And I always thought, oh, that's really cool. That's just like, you know, the monster hitting you right where you live. I think that's pretty nice. So I like the fact that this is one of the things shown in the trailer. Whether or not this is an actual village or if it's just like, yeah, I'm talking about an actual village with the functionality of a normal Monster Hunter village. You know, that's besides the point, because this could just be a place that you go to and there's a cutscene that takes place there and then this just disappears, never come back here again. But I would love it if this is an actual village and it is under attack. And you can see that Nada is here. Maybe this is the place where Nada was guiding our hunters to come to find like these villagers and help them out, because maybe they can't. The monsters are getting more aggressive in the Forbidden Lands or whatever, and somehow these people can't survive here anymore, right? And you see the hunter step in to protect Nata, and Alma comes in and tells him, don't worry, the hunter is here. And this scene goes so hard, dude. This scene goes so hard for so many different reasons, too. Which is like, you see the hunter just riding into danger, but then the hunter is also extremely sexy and hot. And then she's got her thighs showing, and then she steps up on top of... It's like, bro... I'm losing my mind. You know what I'm saying? You guys know what I'm saying, right? And I don't have to explain myself, but it's really badass because she goes into like a standing position to do a jump, almost like, you know, when you see those people doing the stunts with motorcycles and whatnot. That's what she does. See right here? She puts her foot up to get ready to do the jump. She's got the sword on her back. As I just watch, you'll see what hunting is all about. Again, this is Alma comforting Nata to not be scared. Now, this is a separate scene, but I really like it. I'm assuming that this is the Palico, and he throws your greatsword to you or something, and it gets stuck in the sand, and then the hunter picks up the sword midway. That's badass. I'm not sure who is in this sacred. And then the hunter jumps in for the closing shot, and it is absolutely glorious. I love this. I love this trailer. I thought it was really good. But like I said, I did like the one at State of Play more because it gave me more of the things that I'm more interested in discussing, which is gameplay. This one was much more about story and what you can kind of glean from the story, the environment, the monsters, and naturally they also teased the the new monster that they're not really talking about yet, which the community is dubbing Thor Magala. But fundamentally, super hyped. Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comment section of this video down below. Next week, I'm probably going to be having a podcast with Joe and Jono, the community managers for Monster Hunter, and I'm going to be drilling them. Okay, that sounded wrong. I'm going to be asking them a lot of questions in regards to Monster Hunter Wilds. Hopefully, we'll be able to discuss a lot more things, a lot more gameplay mechanics. Hopefully, you guys will look forward to that. But for now, that is going to be it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did, hit the like button. It really, really helps me out. Also, thank you for the outstanding amount of support in yesterday's stream. I was incredibly humbled by it. So thank you for the support. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe, subscribe, bell notification icon. Peace out.